Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the Gnarly Gnome. This is Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft. Are your headphones good? Are they too loud?
No, they're good.
Mine
Mine
were cranking right into my skull. And,
no, that's good.
Is that good right there?
Yep.
Welcome back, everybody. Are your headphones too loud? If so, turn them down on your own. I can't help you guys. Your car stereo. I don't know how people listen to podcasts. Do you think most people listen in their car, or is it like at home? Do they put it on like the...
I'm a both.
I don't think I ever listen to a podcast at home. I think it's always in my car.
It's always,
so I always assume that's how people are doing it.
Yeah.
No, while I'm cooking, it's usually Bluey or something like that cranking over everything in the house. So
it's
you
easy.
can still watch Bluey. Is still a good show.
I could. I've been told it's good. I've not delved into the Bluey lore.
You should. You should one night just drink a whole bunch of Demogorgon and watch Bluey. It'll be a good night.
I don't know about that.
It'll change your world, man. Garrett, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir.
This is this is an annual thing. We sometimes it's closer to anniversary, sometimes it's closer to Demogorgon, sometimes it's closer to something else.
Yep.
But we always do something at least once a year, and I love this tradition.
Yeah.
And there's usually something really great to talk about, and this is no different. There's a great week to do the show. You guys are coming off of a really big win at GABF.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you forgot about it?
I was thinking. I thought you meant the anniversary. I was like, that was a couple weeks ago. No.
I mean, let's start with that. So Black Cats won a gold medal at GABF.
Yes.
Which, if anybody does not know what GABF is, if you are listening to the show, that's very strange. But it's Great American Beer Festival, probably the biggest, most prestigious beer festival.
I would say it's one
competition.
1A, 1B with World Beer Cup. That's normally where how I rank them.
So a medal is a big deal to win, especially a gold medal.
Yes, absolutely.
Ohio only won 7 medals this year. Yeah, 3 of them coming from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That makes me feel a little bit good.
Yeah.
A little bit not great. It was weird not seeing Fatheads win something. Yeah, that's a very strange kind of
Ohio
experience.
underrepresented this year for whatever reason. I don't know what the deal was. I don't know if less people entered this year. It was kind of a wonky year because it was later.
Right.
So I don't know if people didn't enter or what was going on. But yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, three medals is 3, and typically Cincinnati is underrepresented except for Brink and Third Eye. So it's nice to be the opposite where we're overrepresented this year.
Here's what I like, and correct me if I'm wrong. So you went to school for brewing in England.
Yes. I'm
making an assumption that Black Cats is one of your kind of babies.
It is. I think it's probably it's one of very few that like nobody else I don't think has touched.
It's a very strange style though, I think, for some people to understand. It's not only a brown ale, which a lot of people just don't get anymore.
Right.
It's an English brown ale.
Yes. There's a certain je ne sais quoi to English brown ales that you don't get in American brown ales. Less hoppy, more sweet. Definitely a little bit like estery, a little bit it's like more of like a wintertime brown ale. It's the chew on it a little bit more.
Do people? I mean, I'm assuming that people are starting to get it now and order it because it's kind of this is not the first medal it's won. It's people are starting to kind of notice. I assume that like, oh yeah, this is that beer that I keep hearing about. I need to try it when I come in here.
Honestly, no. Nobody like as much as I like it to be like one of those things where like we have to keep it going at all times. It's definitely not. It's somewhat regular. A lot of times around competitions because we tend to brew it for competitions.
Right.
So you tend to see it at the beginning of the year for World Beer Cup. You might see it again like middle of the summer for U.S. Beer Open, and then you see it again at the end of the year or September, October, or whatever for GABF.
I mean, that's still a decent amount of times in a year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know.
It's not like Moozy, where I'm pretty sure the Brink always has to have Moozy on tap at this point.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's like one of those things where like if you are one of those breweries that has like a beer that always wins medals, it's you gotta have it out for specific things.
Do you wish something like Black Cats was that for you guys? Like that everybody came in here and they had to have it and you always had to have it on tap? Or is there something that's like, yeah, people still appreciate it when it's here, but we don't have to do it?
I think it's a little bit more of the, like, it's nice to have, for us to have on. Like, we're going to rebrew it now that it won the medal. Like, obviously, that's a that is that's like on the next schedule. But we are definitely, it doesn't need to be on tap at all times. Like, it's kind of nice. We also have other English style ales that I think are like just as good, at least in my opinion. They're just as good as Black Cats. They just happen to be, they just happen to have not won anything. So,
right.
We've got like right now, the menu board.
Shout out to the new modern tap room with menu boards that just disappeared.
I believe we have our English mild on, which I really like. I actually tend to lean towards the mild.
What is the English mild? What's the name?
Just called mild.
Okay, yeah. I don't know if I've had that.
Probably
That's
not.
One of my favorite styles.
It's kind of like it's newer. Like I think we released in August, end of August.
I was already in full on Oktoberfest mode.
So it's like I think that's like better beer. We actually submitted it to GABF, so it'll be interesting to see what the notes on that are compared to like obviously Black Cats. But yeah, it's I think it's nice. I mean, it's nice to be able to actually do English styles again. Like 5 years ago. I mean, 5 years ago, I don't think we did Black Cats because no one bought English style ales. So
right.
English style anything.
There is like and I don't know if it's everywhere or if Cincinnati is just a little different. Like, I see a lot of like English milds around that is a little surprising to me. And maybe it is a shift in the market a little bit in craft beer as a whole, but
it's made a resurgence amongst like brewers, especially. It's become kind of trendy amongst the production staff to really drink English milds. I actually had in England, like, we didn't really drink a whole lot of milds. It was mostly ESBs. And really even I say that the Black Cats was inspired by my time in England. We didn't really drink that much brown ale either. Like, it was, we were a 40-minute tram ride to Newcastle.
Right.
And they just don't really have a lot of brown ales on. It's mostly ESBs. It's mostly international lagers. It's mostly stuff like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but it's the guy who taught at Brew Lab was the brewer at Newcastle. So we did, I believe I think we had to, like, one of our assignments was to brew a brown ale, like a Newcastle brown ale. And I would argue that Newcastle brown ale is definitely not, like, if you have one Black Cats and Newcastle side by side, they're not even.
Well, especially today.
Yeah, it's not even close. But at one point, like maybe a little bit. Which,
for the record, for anybody listening, it's all brewed at Lagunitas now. It's not even from England. It's an abomination of what it used to be.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not very good anymore. It used to be like one of the beers that I would drink all the time, which is maybe why Black Cats is good.
I went through this kick probably, it's probably been 2 years at this point, where there was one night somebody was talking about Newcastle, and I was kind of thinking about some of those early beers that I was like, oh man, I drank a shit ton of Newcastle when I was an early beer drinker. I went to Newcastle. I'm like, where can I go get a Newcastle? I'm like, there's got to be a place that has it on tap. It's always on tap at like B-dubs, right? Because in my head it is.
Right.
Because at the time it was.
Yeah.
So I went there and they're like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right.
I'm like,
I don't even
okay. And I went all over the place trying to find it on tap somewhere. I probably should have pulled up like Untapped and seen if it was anywhere, because it wasn't anywhere. Yeah. Bottles were really hard to find. I finally found a 6-pack of Jungle Gyms.
I was going to say, Jungle Gyms is probably the only place that I could think of. Like, maybe Party Source would have some, but I don't know that I've ever seen it on draft. Like,
now I'm curious again. Like, I feel like, like the pub at Rookwood or something should have it.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't think they do.
I feel like that's kind of like one of the things about these larger breweries is like big breweries is like unless it's like their lager, like you're probably not going to see it on draft. Like, I just saw that Goose Island is coming out with Honkers again. And it's in cans, and it'd be interesting to see if like Honkers will ever hit draft again.
Right.
Like, I know that it does hit draft because I've had it in Chicago on draft, but like
it would be like a very like specialty thing.
Like, I think it's probably in Chicagoland, and that's probably it. Probably doesn't make it. It's probably not going to make its way down to Cincinnati. So if you want your Honkers, you got to go to get a can or whatever.
Which maybe that's the way some of those beers that like we have like a strong memory of. Maybe that's the way they should be, because it's never going to live up to like the memories that are in your head about it.
At least if you get a can or whatever, you can dump out.
I think
of a 12-ounce can.
There are probably 3 bottles of Newcastle sitting somewhere in my basement that I'd never finished.
Yeah, that's cook with it. That's always my my recommendation with bad beer is just cook with it, typically.
even just beer, just cook with beer all the time.
Yeah,
so GABF metals, you don't think that this is going to make any kind of actual real difference here in the tap room? Because here's my line of thinking. Like I recognize that most people that come into a tap room don't really care about a metal. If it's up there and it says, "Oh, this is GABF award winning," they're probably going to put it in their flight. Maybe they're going to try it if they wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you look at some of the places like Brink or like Third Eye that have so much about winning medals as part of their personality.
Right.
That has to affect things somehow. There has to be somebody that's like, you know what, I haven't been to Brink.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be close. That's the place I should probably go to because they're award winning, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, so I think it's style dependent. Definitely. Like I know the guys up at Old Irving, when they won for Beezer for New England, it was like a huge deal.
Right.
That boosted sales. I know Masthead, like they get boosts from medals for their IPAs. I think for like the more niche styles, I think it's pretty tough.
The 3 English brown ale fans that live in a 50-mile radius are going to flock here.
Right. Well, and I think it's probably bigger for like out of town people too.
Sure.
Who don't have the opportunity to like come in and like, I don't know, maybe you live in a town that like nobody's ever wanted GABF now. Maybe nobody enters GABF. And you're in from out of town and you say, all right, well, I want to go to these breweries because these breweries have won awards. There are people like that. We had, this was this
somewhere in the state of Kentucky who did not win any awards this year.
Maybe I didn't want to besmirch Kentucky, if possibly.
I don't know how many people entered. I
know
it's not making fun of Kentucky.
I know this happened 2 years ago. Someone came in after I guess it wouldn't be 2 years ago. It was last year. After Black Hats won silver at World Beer Cup. He came in, he was from out of town. He specifically said, I want to try the Black Hats, and we didn't have it. So I was like, hey man, we don't have that. Sorry about that. But like I think we're rebrewing it here soon. And he's like, yeah, I don't live here. And I was like, well, that sucks for you. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's a lot of out of towners will come in, or not a lot of out of towners. Out of towners will come in to try beer that has won awards.
It is interesting. Like if I was from out of town going somewhere, I don't know that I would expect a award-winning English style or even a lot of like the more traditional German styles to be on all the time.
Yeah.
But like if it's an IPA, like I kind of do.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little freedom in that too of winning in one of those.
I think
styles.
it's also tough. It's tough. Yeah. But I don't know. Like in the middle of July in Cincinnati, do you really want an English brown ale? Probably not. Or maybe one.
I would probably.
But it's like, I'm not trying to. I'd rather if we'd won for like German Pilsner and it was July, I'd be like, okay, I would want this on tap.
Right.
Or American lager or whatever. That's like honestly like that's really where I'd like to be. If we could get boring beer, our American lager could win a medal. I'd be very excited.
I don't know how many were entered in like American lager or German style Pilsner. I imagine those styles are pretty full now.
Yes, they are.
There are some styles that are extremely difficult to medal in because of that, because just the sheer amount of beers.
Yes.
Obviously, IPA, things like that are very difficult to win in because there's just so much competition.
I think IPA this year had 421 entries.
That's
which
crazy.
Is just like insane. I mean, but you think about there's 9,000 breweries in the country. That's really not like. It's a lot, but it's not like.
It's also like impressive that there are that many places that are like, our IPA is that good that we need to enter it into this. I mean,
category. I can say, having judged one competition ever, most of them are probably not very good, but many of them are not good. I wouldn't say most.
Even at GABF, like
I think people. I mean, even
because it's not cheap to enter GABF either.
It's not, but like you never know. You might just like weirdly sneak on in. It's like you might sneak into that last round. Like when we like the first year, I guess 7 years ago now, we entered Raspberry Beret and made it to the final round. I was like, that's a win for me.
Right.
And like I don't think Raspberry Beret is like it's a good beer. It's not better than anybody else's like mixed fermentation sour with raspberry that's been barrel aged for. But like it was nice to be there. I think sometimes you'll like, even besides that example, we've we've tried a beer and we're like, all right, this didn't turn out exactly what we want, but like I think it hits certain parameters. I think we can probably I think like if we get the right judge on the right day on the right like round, it might sneak through.
Well, there's some styles that like really are not that they're a crapshoot, but they kind of are. Like if you're talking fruited sours, like that's a very broad style category.
It definitely is, because
field beer. Dear God, field beer. Like how are you supposed to judge that?
Right. Well, and like
so it really does come down to like preference.
It's hard. Like if you don't like raspberry, you don't like raspberry. I mean, even IPAs like that. If you don't like, say you don't like Simcoe.
Right.
I mean, I know that's everybody's.
Some
example.
people love Cappy.
I know. It doesn't taste like Cappy anymore. Like once upon a time, sure, but like
I was telling somebody that the other day that like I don't get it anymore when I try a Simcoe beer. I don't get Cappy at all.
Yeah, they've bred it out, which is like what they should have done. But like
I'm afraid that my palate has died, is what it is.
Maybe, but no, it's like you enter a whatever you don't like passion fruit. Like that's I know because we've entered dragon fruit or we've entered glitter freeze, which is dragon fruit, passion fruit. Like if you don't like passion fruit, I feel like you have a hard time judging that category, regardless of. And I don't know. I've never been a GABF judge, so I don't know if you can be like, I don't like.
I think you can put in like preference. Like these are things that I really am great at judging. These are things that I am terrible at judging. Yeah. You can write it down, and they take it into consideration.
And I think that's good. But like, it's also you can't like if you're like I only like English milds. They're probably gonna be like, okay, then you can't judge because we need you to do more than just one category.
What about kind of? And obviously, this is not what happened with Black Cats. It's an English brown ale, but I see some people enter in beers that, to me, clearly are not that style.
Yeah, there's category manipulation. I mean, it's just like it's like any awards.
I mean, I'll call out Rheingeist for Cheetah winning for American Cream Ale at one point.
I think we've done it too. I'm trying to think of like an example of a beer that we did some category manipulation on. I can't remember. I think we may have entered ESB in Hoppy Amber or something like that.
Right.
And that's just kind of like one of those things that you do because like you see last year there was 60 entries in ESB and there was 42 entries and whatever. And then you're like, all right, I'm gonna go towards the one that like it fits all these parameters and it's whatever. It's still a good beer. So it qualifies under two things. I'm just gonna call it this one thing for today.
How much time do you guys spend when you're entering a competition thinking about stuff like that?
None. Like it used to be a lot and now it's a lot less. Typically what ends up happening is I say, we need to sit down and decide what we're going to enter. And then we don't. And then like 2 days before the deadline, I sit down, I'm just like, well, we have this beer coming up. We have this beer coming up. We have this beer coming up. We can put this beer in the schedule. We can put this beer in the schedule. And then that gets us to 5 or 6 or whatever. And then we're good. I mean, like, I think the Black Hats that we entered was actually kind of like not out of date, but it was like it was probably a month old by the time that we sent it off. Like it wasn't like the freshest of fresh beers.
Right.
Because it's just not possible. It's like you got to get 7 beers out if you were trying to do that for one specific day to drop it off for shipping, it's very difficult.
Is that why we typically see Denver win a whole lot more at GABF than other places?
I know that's like the argument. I mean, that's why
there were like 40 something medals out of Denver this year.
I think it's tough when like with hoppy beers. I think that's very difficult to be like, okay, like I'm gonna send my IPA that's like I packaged 2 days before we shipped it, but by the time that it's judging, I think our deadline to ship was August 25th, I think. So it's been sitting, and we all ship cold. I mean, everybody, at least in Ohio, the guild organizes a cold, like a reefer truck to go across the country for everybody. So they pick up at 3 different sites. So like as long as you're keeping the beer cold, it should be fine. But yeah, it's still just sitting there. It's just been sitting in a cooler for a month. Like that's just like that's not the best way to store an IPA. The best way to store an IPA is typically drinking it.
I think the Denver breweries actually show up in the parking lot there and package in the parking lot and then just walk them. I think
could be that could be the secret. Maybe we just need to take a tank out there and a
packaging party.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there is definitely a benefit to being closer to the festival. I mean, your beer doesn't have to move at all.
Right.
Your beer, like you don't have to worry about your beer possibly like losing a can. Like who knows? Like we sent bottles this year, not for the first time, but we sent bottles this year. Like, who knows? Like, maybe a bottle broke and they couldn't judge the category because they didn't have enough. But like next year, it'll be interesting to see because it's in World Beer Cups in Indianapolis.
Right.
So actually, I don't remember what we do with World Beer Cup. Maybe we do ship it to Colorado. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to
ship it to Colorado. Now comes all the way back.
Well, I think, and they just do the awards at World Beer Cup. I mean, I have to like look at the emails now because I'm probably saying something stupid. But I actually do think we ship it out to Colorado. Right. It gets judged in Colorado, and then the actual award ceremony. They're not doing it in Indianapolis.
There might be something to that also because it might be more difficult to find enough judges to do something like that in Indianapolis.
Oh yeah,
versus.
Yeah,
just do it
somewhere
where
you've been doing competitions for however many years.
Right.
Great American Beer Fest has been going on.
But even with all of the crap that surrounds trying to win medals and winning medals and styles and all that stuff, it still feels good, right? To win something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to have been there. I was at a wedding, at my friend's wedding. It would have been nice to have been there because that's now two major, actually all three of like our biggest awards.
That's the little good luck charm. Maybe you just can't be there.
I think actually like not paying attention whatsoever to the award ceremony really helped. I don't know if that's like my little secret, but like we were in the middle of like I believe the father of the bride was giving his speech, so I was not really on my phone. I started like my phone was buzzing. I was like, all right, well I'm gonna look now because I knew what was going on.
Like that commercial where they're at the wedding and they're watching football or something, and they're the guy's giving the speech and like, marriage isn't for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the three biggest awards that we've gotten, I have not been. One was COVID. We were at Nine Giant. It was all like the wife and I were at Nine Giant, and I started getting texts. I was like, all right, what's this about?
Right.
One award. World Beer Cup, Steve, who's production manager here, and James, who's a brewer here, were in Nashville but wanted to get home before the award ceremony, so they left before the award ceremony. And then this year, like none of us, I don't think any of us had it on TV. Like last year, like it was during the anniversary. We all sat around and we turned it on TV. And
wasn't it like later in the evening too last year? The awards.
I think it went. I feel like it started a little bit later because it was like normally it's like noon. It starts at noon or 11 or whatever. But like we were all sitting here for the anniversary, so like we'd all been here for a couple of hours. So I don't even know. I lost track. But
this year I tried to watch as much of the awards live as like I always like to watch it live, and we were buying a car because of my wonderful wife who totaled her car.
Yes.
So we spent the entire amount of Beer Week car shopping in every little spot that I could find to do that. And we were literally sitting there in the car dealership, and I've got my phone next to me, like that guy in the commercial. And she could just elbow me, and she's like, "You can't sit here and do that right now." Yeah. We should drink a beer. This is we've done way too much talking without a beer. What is this that's in front of me right here?
So this is
we got to hit the.
From the beer fridge.
Of course.
There you go.
I get grumpy emails if I don't play it.
So this is a not yet announced double version of, I don't think we've announced either the variant or this double. So this is pumpkin pie cheesecake, double pumpkin pie cheesecake, Demogorgon. They're bottling it right now. There's not really much to say. It's pumpkin pie and cheesecake. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so this is like one of my.
That gets so good at the end too. That's great.
It's really, really spicy. And the standard version is like a little bit more cheesecakey. This is like, it's hard to double pumpkin pie cheesecake, like do a double version of it.
Right.
So we really we just kind of like went and got different spices than we initially used, and then used those spices. And I think that like just the combination of Colonel D spice, I think like Kroger brand pumpkin pie spice. I think those two things combined, I think that's what really made it like. And then we did add like a bunch of pumpkin, like it's pumpkin pie.
That is a great beer. That is perfect for after a big Thanksgiving meal,
and it's just like
or during the meal.
I've kind of come around on pumpkin. I used to like not be a pumpkin beer guy. I used to think whatever like.
There were a lot of bad pumpkin beers too,
and I think one of the things is like the people still making pumpkin beer now are like typically like kind of maybe like pumpkin beer, and now whatever. They're gonna do a good job because they're dedicated to the craft of pumpkin beer.
Right. Well, I mean, and they're for a long time when he said pumpkin beer, it was kind of the exact same beer. It was kind of a lighter ale that just was loaded with a bunch of pumpkin pie spice, which is fine.
Yeah, a lot of amber with a lot of spice.
Now we're starting to see more darker pumpkin beers, which I think tastes way better.
Well, I think we do the pumpkin spice latte, Return of the Mac, and I think that's almost the way to do a pumpkin beer is like a coffee and pumpkin spice beer, because like it's already so ingrained in people that it's one of those things where like everybody knows what to expect. Like you can do a wide range, you can do a stout, you can do a blonde, you can do an amber, you can do whatever you want, and it goes over well almost regardless, because those two things go well together. Like there's nothing wrong with it.
I'm taking something like this over a coffee pumpkin any day. Yeah, this is exactly what I want pumpkin beer to be. I want to sit around like a fire at night, sitting outside and sipping on something that this is.
Yeah, I think, and this
solid.
I feel like we debated this was going to possibly be our FOBAB entry, not this, but the single version.
Right.
Just because it's kind of just it's a little bit out of the realm of what you normally get at FOBAB, excuse me. So we were just like, well, why don't we do something? Why don't we do something a little bit more unique than what we have, like besides coconut and vanilla, coconut and whatever. And like last year, we've actually tried to enter some pretty interesting beers in FOBAB as of late. And I was like, why don't we let's go back more old school. So we're doing coconut coffee this year, which this is batch 2 of coconut coffee. We did batch 1, I think 3 years ago.
Right.
And now we're doing I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Nobody else will be able to hear it.
Okay, that's good. Sorry people that just like heard me stop and just not know what is going on. It's not like I didn't tell them what we were doing up here. But yeah, we went towards still do coconut, do some coffee, and it's really good. I really like that beer. The coffee is next level. It's like the best coffee beer I think we've ever done.
That's a bold statement.
Yeah. I mean, like it's
I mean, on the other hand, like you should, every time you brew a new kind of coffee beer, you should probably think it's the best one.
Right.
Right. But
I think it's one of those things. We just let the coffee sit a little bit longer than we normally do, so the coffee's really strong. Whereas typically it's like a little bit more like of a hint of coffee.
I still, and this is a little different, but when I think about Demogorgon and I think about all the different variants that have come out, like I still cannot get that original apple brandy barrel Demogorgon out of my head.
Yeah,
like it still just was such a great experience that there's some beers like that just that ingrain themselves into memories and things like that. And that was one of those beers that just.
I was gonna say, I don't think we've done apple brand. Like, I don't think we have any apple brandy downstairs, period. So it's probably going to be, I mean, like
there was another one like a couple years ago, right?
Right. But I think we're done. We're pretty much done. Like if we don't have any apple brandy right now, it's not coming out for like at least what we've been doing is aging all Demogorgon for at least 2 years. So, it's like, it won't come out until 2026.
How much of Demogorgon is just, I guess probably not much of it is single barrel stuff now. It's like you're blending stuff, but is it multiple years you're blending together, or is it all kind of the same age, just different barrels?
I don't want to say it's all, because that's probably not true. If I actually went downstairs, I think we actually did pull a little bit of some of the younger barrels. We still do some single barrel stuff.
Right.
Like we have a single barrel Demogorgon coming out this year. I don't even remember what the barrel is. I think it might be New Riff malted rye. But like now it's just kind of like, unless it's like a very special barrel that we want to like call out specifically,
right.
Like we're taking everything that we've done, blending it all up, and then dosing it out, and then that's how we adjunct it. But like this year we've got raspberry brandy, like a raspberry brandy barrel. Obviously we're not going to blend that away.
Right.
We want to do that one specifically. We did.
How many of the variants have you guys talked about yet?
I don't even know.
How many are we talking about today?
We can talk about as many as we want. I think almost by the time that this comes out,
That's true.
We're recording a week before.
Yes.
Hopefully. So like I believe by the time that this all comes out, or by the time this podcast comes out, everything will have been mostly announced. So we can talk about anything.
Okay.
But yeah, but I also don't remember everything that we've done. So, and it's a lot of like we're doing less variants this year.
How many are we talking?
I think like in total we will have 10 variants because I think we have 5 standard, maybe 6 because single barrel obviously doesn't get doubled. And then we'll have 4 bottles, I think, because I don't think we did a double of raspberry tort. And then we always do our VIP dinner, and that has its own variant as well. So it's really 11 variants will come out next week, but only 10 will be for general public.
Or this week if you're listening to this, because
this week. Sorry,
this weekend.
Yes. Yeah, don't
podcast time.
Yeah, don't show up the week. Well, I don't know how you'd even know about it, unless you're. I don't know. But yeah, we've got almost everything packed. Yeah, after today, we will have everything, all cans packaged. The last to go is the vanilla granola bar, which is very almondy. It's kind of maybe a misnomer to call it vanilla, but granola bar Demogorgon.
I love nuts in beer.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite adjuncts to throw in there.
Yeah, that beer, I really like that beer. We've the almonds that we're getting are like really, really like pastry-esque almonds. So you kind of get like what you would taste like if you were eating like a croissant or whatever,
right?
An almond croissant. So I think that's the last one, and we're gonna spend a lot of time bottling this weekend. I think, well, probably not next week. Hopefully we're done. Hopefully we get everything done. I think they're doing 2, or we are doing 2. I don't know that I'm gonna actually help bottle because I don't like it.
When you guys are bottling, how many heads does your bottler have? How many bottles are you filling it with? That sucks.
It's a hand bottler. It's a homebrew hand bottler. Okay. Yeah. We have not changed the way we bottle since the first time we did bottles.
Why is that?
Because I don't want to buy a bottler. It
okay,
doesn't like it's not like sense. It's just like one more.
There's got to be some like that you can find like used that are probably on a pretty steep discount at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like you could, but like it's also just like one more thing to maintain and one more like we don't bottle frequently enough that even like we're only doing 5 cases of each variant. So It's not in total. It's really it's 25 cases. It's not that much beer. And like if you split it up over multiple days, it's really like might take an hour or 2. If we got this, like not that this is a concern really, but like we'd be done so fast that like we would have nothing to do.
I think about every home brewer that I've ever known. Like they start brewing and then like as soon as they bottle like their first like 2 batches, like all right, this is dumb. I'm 22 ounce from now on. I'm never bottling 12 ounces. Right. And then very quickly after that, all right, forget this kegs. I got to put it in a kegerator.
Yeah,
I'm not doing this.
If it wasn't for the ability to do these doubles, I mean, what we're doing is we're just dosing kegs,
right?
And then we're bottling off those kegs. So it's if we didn't have these kegs, then we'd just be doing more variants of cans. And I think like one of the things that we've noticed this year is that, or like in the past, is like people obviously like the doubles better than they like the standard. So we really need to like lean into doubles, which is kind of why we pulled back on variants a little bit this year and last year really. And just kind of like leaned into really making the doubles.
I still think there's something special about having something in a bottle though too.
Like,
having that packaging format.
Yeah, there's definitely like a mindset.
It feels more, which it feels more special.
Yeah. And like, I think like, and it's waxed and they're all stamped and all that stuff. So it's all got like the perception of like higher quality than just like the can that we throw. I mean, we're almost at like, are we almost at 1 million cans, I think. So like this brewery has put out a lot of cans in the last 4 years.
Right.
So like what's one more, even if it is Demogorgon, what's one more can to someone? Whereas like we might do 60 cases of bottles a year. You know what I mean? Or 70 cases of bottles a year.
Every time I take a sip of this, I get something else.
Yeah.
There is so much going on in this beer.
It's nice. Well, and the other thing is it's warm now.
Yeah.
Because it came off a keg and like he literally like put the bottle wand into the glass to fill it. So like this is like it's probably a little warmer than you will drink it. Definitely a little bit warmer than the people will drink it on Saturday.
That's my favorite thing about a stout, especially if I'm drinking out of a bottle, especially if I'm drinking it by myself. You know, the very beginning of it, it's probably pretty cold.
Yeah.
It's going to take me a long time to sit there and work my way through that bottle. By the time I get to the end, it's almost like a whole different beer.
For sure.
And I love that kind of journey of a beer.
Yeah.
Which is part of why I still kind of enjoy that experience of a bottle, especially versus a 12-ounce can for something that I'm like, I like that journey.
Yeah. I mean,
on the flip side, I have to know that I'm not like going anywhere that night.
Right. Well, I think like almost like, I don't really like 12-ounce cans. Like I like 12-ounce cans for like, I'm at a bar and I'm going to drink whatever. I'm going to drink 10 of them.
Right.
Or whatever. And like, that's fine. But like, I prefer like obviously I prefer 16-ounce cans because whatever, that's what we package in, and like that's what I drink the most of. But it is nice to be able to be like, all right, this is one beer, this is a pint,
right?
As opposed to like
doing
my math.
Look, I had three pints,
which
is very different.
Yeah,
than three beers.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's also like if you were packaging a bunch of like high ABV stout in a 12-ounce can, like I just don't. It doesn't have the impact. Like it doesn't have the impact of a 16-ounce can. It certainly doesn't have the impact of a 500 ml bottle.
Right. Well, and like I've also been a proponent for little tiny cans. I know there's a couple places that do those, which I think would be great. But it also then becomes more of like an everyday beer at that point. Yeah. It's not special anymore.
Yeah. I love and like I almost lean away from doing like a stout in those little tiny cans, like a nice like Hopewell in Chicago does. Little Buddy. It's like I don't even know what the beer is, but it's just like a tiny can. It's like cool label, like and I would love to do those. I don't even know how to do them. I'd love to like talk to them about someday, just to like find out like who's canning it for them. But like I'm sure they don't want everybody doing them, because like I think almost every brewery would want to bring somebody in to do these little tiny cans because they're hilarious, and they're great for bars because you can use them as like a sidecar, and then you can whatever. It's great for the like people at the bar if you just want like a can of like a Little Buddy.
I drink a ton of Little Kings like all the time because I just love a smaller it's a little half pour.
That's I was gonna say there's your Cincinnati, your Cincinnati example.
But I'm curious, like if I would be more likely to open up a stout sitting at home if it was in like a little 7-ouncer versus a 22-ounce bottle.
It would be, I think the perceived value would be lower. Like on the brewery end, perceived value
on both ends.
Yeah,
like
It's easier to justify. Like I don't have to be doing something special to open a 15% 7-ounce stout. I do probably want to have like something in mind. Maybe not celebration, but maybe I'm just gonna like sit around and watch the Bengals game. Like, but I'm not moving for 4 hours.
Right.
So like, it's cool to open up 15% stout.
I usually, this is the time of year where I start digging back into the cellar of all the stuff that has been accumulating that I haven't had the opportunity or the time or the mindset to drink it.
Right.
I don't think that would be the same with some of those big stouts if they were sitting in the fridge in a little 7-ounce package.
I'd be like,
whatever. It's a random Saturday.
It's also
a little chilly today. I'm going to drink it.
Right. Well, and you think about it, it's like almost like a pour wine. Like it's like that's kind of the same concept as like I can have although like.
And my drinking habits with wine are the exact same. I don't touch wine during the summertime unless somebody has a bottle. Like, hey, do you want some of this? I'm like, of course I do.
Sure.
I'm a drunk. Yeah. But in the wintertime, I'm more likely to be like, I really want a glass of wine right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not like a big summer wine guy unless it's like a white or a rosé. But like during the winter, I'll maybe like. Also, I tend to just drink more during the winter anyway.
That's just like gotta stay warm.
Yeah. Warm and bored. So, or I'm cold and I'm bored. So, beer, wine, bourbon, whatever. It warms me up and makes me a little less bored.
It keeps things exciting.
Yep.
Also, sometimes sports help with the amount of alcohol we have to drink.
Yes.
Although we pulled it out.
Yeah, sure.
Although, again, this posts next Monday. So there's another game before then.
Yeah, could be
We're either drinking because we're happy or drinking because we're sad.
Yep.
The standard question that I think I probably ask every time we're here, where Streetside is now is obviously very different than probably what you pictured it was going to be back at the beginning. Where do you see things going, short term, long term? What is happening with this industry? What is the big giant question that everybody can never seem to answer?
I saw another podcast and had like an existential crisis about 90 minutes in about the state of the industry. So I will try not to do that here.
Was this with Blake? Or
yeah, it was like maybe a month and a half ago. And I almost not broke down. Like I wasn't weeping on the podcast.
That would have been a good podcast.
I did have like a long rant about the state of the industry not being quite where everybody wanted it to be when you were looking at it 5 years ago. I don't know. I mean, I think it's clearly not in a good place. I think you can spin it however you want, but like most people most brewers, if you ask them, most owners of brewers, if you ask them, would probably say, hey, like we're getting hit pretty hard right now. Like cost of goods is up. Cost of labor is up, which is like, everyone loves their employees, but like cost of labor is up. You've got all sorts of stuff. It's harder to find music, harder to find food trucks, harder to find events, harder to like get people to like come to your brewery because there's so much more going on. Like we got so used to COVID where like you didn't have, like you could only go out and drink. There weren't events. You couldn't go to a Reds game. You couldn't go to a Bengals game. You couldn't spend your discretionary income on going to the brewery. We got used to that. And then I think now we're kind of not reaping what we sowed because we didn't do anything. But we did get used to a certain amount of income, like the normal people's income coming our way. And now it's much harder to get them. You got to convince them to come in.
I'm curious how much of it comes from customer fatigue too, where for so long it was what's next, what's the new thing, and then people kind of get tired of that chasing the next new thing, and they're like, man, I just want to grab the beer that's on the shelf that is comfort.
Yeah, it's and like I mean, you look at all these a lot of breweries. I mean, we've been open for 8 years. You've got Madry, you've got Rhinegeist, you got all these places that have been open for a while, and like. Everybody knows what to expect at this point. Like we're not. Every once in a while, maybe somebody will pop out something that's completely wild. Like I mean, I just saw 50 West just started their Delta whatever THC. Like that's different. But you've got.
But it's also not beer.
Yeah.
Like that's what like
I feel like that's
all of like the exciting innovation. Exciting is a relative term, but all of the innovation and the big new kind of stuff that's come out that people are paying attention to for the last how many years has just not been beer.
Yeah, and I think that's probably kind of gonna be the way it is. Like I think consumption of beer is kind of probably is falling off.
Right.
And I think it will continue to fall off. I think it'll probably hit a plateau because there's no way that. Not everyone's going to switch over to RTDs or Delta whatever drinks, or I never get the number right, so I'm just not going to even bother.
Yeah, I was messing
up too. Or like hard lemonade or whatever. There's all these new or like high noons or whatever. I know that's an RTD technically, but like that's kind of out. That's not really like the RTD. And they like when I think of RTDs, I don't think of that. I think people are going to continue to transition to those, especially younger people. But your brewery audience is probably always going to remain, at least there's going to be people that always want to go to a brewery. It's just going to be hard for that audience that has shrunk to maintain 9,000 breweries in the US.
Well, you just don't see a lot of like new craft beer drinkers. Like it used to be that was a big part of the crowd when you walked into a brewery. There was always somebody that was just figuring this thing out and was excited to try new stuff. Everybody's already been drinking it, and so like you don't have that new excitement anymore.
You do get like a different audience, like as a neighborhood place. Sure. You do get a new audience because people are moving in the neighborhood, and they're maybe a little bit younger because it's.
Have you guys and definitely this neighborhood is growing exponentially right now. There's a lot of stuff happening. And so this would be an interesting question for several different places in different parts of town. But have you seen a change in how many people are here that are just they're regulars? They come in, periodically or weekly or whatever it may be, versus people that it's their first time, which I know it's a hard thing unless you're standing behind the bar all the time. But
we still get new people or people that don't know about us even 8 years in. Like it's still been like, oh, how long have you been open?
Have you seen a change in that?
No, we definitely have more regulars now. Like,
right.
We definitely, but like,
well, I hope so. I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that's like the more people that move here, the more they become regulars.
Yeah.
I think it is like, it'd be interesting to ask, so like east, west, like I would bet west side and they can, whatever, I'm sure they can, next time you talk to them, they can correct me, but I bet they have more regulars. Because it's definitely like a more like their neighborhood is definitely like that's the area. Right. That's where they go to. We have slightly more people that are like coming in from out of town. Like we've got Lunkin right there. We've got the precinct. We've got a bunch of different stuff that people are like more transient than you would. And like there's a part of our neighborhood that just does not come in. And that like last week, one of our neighbors from a part of Eastern that is not the part of Eastern that comes in, came in, sat down, and she said, I want a Bud Light. And I was like, oh, you don't have that. She's like, just give me something that tastes like beer. I was like, I don't really want to be a dick, but like, this is not like, you're going to be really upset when I pour you this. And then I ask you to pay the amount that I'm going to ask you to pay.
Right.
I said, local Bose is right next door. Just go, if you want a Bud Light, go grab it from there. Like, I understand, like, I'm not offended. Hopefully you're not offended. Like she was very, very nice about the fact that like I told her the place to get a Bud Light was next door. There's just like when we have certain subsects of this neighborhood where you can't, that's just not our crowd.
Right.
So hopefully like the other parts of the neighborhood begin to grow, or maybe the other parts of the neighborhood begin to get turned on by craft beer. I don't know if that's the thing. I just also think it's like, I just don't think it's I hate to be the bummer. And like, but I'm not going to stop talking about like the fact that this is just like, this isn't, I don't want to say it's a dying industry. It's a stagnating industry to be sure. And like a lot of people you don't see a lot of the people that started out brewing 10 to 12 years ago still in it. It's
right.
Because a lot of times like it's just like burnout or whatever. They're not getting paid what they want to get paid or whatever. I mean, it's just tough to say that this industry is showing a ton of growth when you've got all these different factors affecting us. And like, it's just kind of like, that's just the demographics of the US right now and the demographics of our city. And like, unless like cost of goods goes down dramatically, I think you already are seeing people close. I've been calling this for how many years? And like, I think you're going to continue to see people close. I think you're going to continue to see people tighten up or maybe try to sell because it's just not, I don't know that anybody's having like a whole heck of a lot of fun right now.
Well, I mean, it depends. Number one, why you're doing what you do and what your end goal is. Like, right. What are you working towards? Like, why are you doing this?
Well, I think part of the problem with that is like a lot of these people probably thought like 10 years in, you'd be like the end goal would be a little bit more like defined. Like I feel like everybody's just kind of like year in, year out, you're sitting there like, all right, we're going to churn out this much beer. We're going to serve this many people. We're going to do this many events. And then you get to the end of the year, like, well, okay, there's another year. Check it off. Like, right. What did we accomplish? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I'm the only one feeling this way, but like, what did I accomplish?
You're definitely not.
And like, like, cool. We want an award this week, but like, that's not as fulfilling as it was year 5.
Right.
Like it once upon a time, like getting a GABF gold would have been like the highlight of my 3 months, about 4 months, whatever. And now I'm just like, cool. But like, we also gotta like, I gotta get back to work on Monday. I gotta get back to work. Exactly. Like it's not like what it once was. It's more of a job now than it was. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way. I think a lot of people that have been brewing for a long time feel like it's more of a job than it ever has been because you're sitting there and you're you're seeing the numbers and they just don't add up.
Well, and you're also, for a lot of people, you're yes, you're running a brewery, you're running a tap room, you're also running a restaurant,
Right.
you're also running an event space.
Yep.
You're also like there's distribution business for some of these guys.
Yep.
Like you're doing all of these different things that maybe when you started, it's like I love beer and I want to make beer and I want to share this thing with people, and like that's kind of gotten lost.
Yeah. I think, and like it's not like one it's not like anything is like even the smallest brewery in town is still like it's still a fucking job. You know? It's like at the end of the day, it's still a fucking job. And like even if you're not distributing, even if you're only running your tap room and you never sell a keg out, it's still like you still got to deal with the day in and day out. Like
Bocce Brewing Company, smallest brewery in town.
Okay, there we go.
I was trying to think in my head.
Yeah. But that's like it's still, and honestly, it's probably more stressful for them because they're probably one or two people run that place.
Yeah.
And like, at least I have a team, and I have people that I can rely on. But like, it's without that, man, it's like, it's tough.
I don't know. When I think about them specifically, so it's a restaurant first, Gabby's Cafe in Wyoming.
Okay.
And the brewery was kind of added on as more of like a, not that it was all just for the fun of it, but that's a big part of it. It's like they have been serving other people's beer for a long time. Like, what if we have a couple taps of our beer? It if it sells fast, cool. They have to then make more. Right. If it takes a little while to sell, it's not a big deal because it's not the goal of the place. Yeah. So they might be in a very different position than a lot of places that are brewery first.
Yeah, as you say, if you have a restaurant that's propping up everything, then that is actually easier. But then you got to deal with a restaurant, and like, and then you're also dealing with a very stressful industry that is not like, I don't know if it's doing better or worse. I don't know enough. I don't know enough about the restaurant business to know that it's.
I know it costs me just as much to go to Burger King as it does to sit down and have a nice meal somewhere, which is weird.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like I know. Yeah, costs are up across the board, which is that's another part of the problem.
I'm amazed that we haven't seen as much of a rise on that side. On this side of the bar, we've definitely seen a rise.
It's gonna have to go. I think
the beginning of 2023. I think I wrote something that said like this year is going to be insane. Like we're going to see like those prices just skyrocket, and we've seen a little bit of a rise. It went from average of what $6 a pint to it's probably $7 average now places.
I think
that's still not what it should be.
I think it's hard. Because like I don't know if I said this on the podcast or if I was just talking to random people, but like beer isn't wine. People don't equate the same value in beer as they do with wine. Yeah. And it's very difficult for the consumer to get their head around it.
Right.
If we were to come out and price the pints like we would want to or whatever, we would get significant pushback. And I think the we're in Cincinnati. We're not in New York.
Right.
It's hard to justify coming out and being like, okay, you got a $10 pint. You know what I mean? Like that's really hard.
I will still drink a $10 pint of beer, but I'm not going to drink nearly as much as I would have otherwise.
Right. And that's also math because you do need like that. That's a math problem that you need to do because like we need to move product as well as like, it's not just a matter of sales. We also need to be moving product out of tanks in order to be able to bring new product out. So that's also a whole different math problem that you have to do.
And to be able to support a staff like you guys have, have to be working.
Yeah.
It's like you could make one beer and it would sit there for 3 months, and then you make another beer and it sits there for 3 months, and then that would be a fine business model if it was just you.
Yeah, right.
But there has to be this constant movement happening in order for it to all make sense.
Yep, for sure. Yeah,
this is depressing. Let's talk about something fun. Let's drink another beer.
We can do that.
That pumpkin cheesecake is delicious, though.
Per usual, all these cans are super full.
So I would rather that than not.
Yeah, right. This is like a riff on a variant that we did. Okay, we didn't call it batch 2. We did Milk and Cookies Demogorgon a couple of years ago. That was like a pre-Demogorgon day. We did Milk and Cookies. It was like a rum barrel.
What year
aged.
was that?
I don't even fucking know.
20. It was early. It was a while ago.
I think it was an online release. So it was COVID.
Okay.
So we did that, and then we did another batch, I think 2 years ago. We got rid of the rum barrels. We just did bourbon barrels. It's like a bunch of Oreos, or not trademark cookies. And then this year we decided to do Oreo with peanut butter because
which I think actually exists as an Oreo.
Oh,
now.
yeah,
There are so many different kinds of Oreos.
If you were to have the double, the peanut butter Oreo is actually in the double.
Gotcha.
And it's also, there's peanut butter in it. So it's a lot of peanut butter. So if you're allergic to peanuts, please do not drink this beer.
Smells great. I'm amazed at how many people still would if you didn't tell them that. Like they come and sit down and order peanut butter things. Like, oh, I'm allergic to nuts.
Well, yeah,
And get mad when they blow up like a balloon.
Yeah, we that does happen. That's like happens with lactose. They don't like. I don't know. For me, if you say that something is a milkshake IPA, I'm gonna assume it has milk in it.
Yeah. So I have a good friend. Shout out to Marco from Truth Beer Pod that is lactose intolerant, like to a very high level. And there's a lot of beers that even if they tell them it doesn't have lactose, he's like, I don't care. I'm not going to drink that. I don't trust it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't trust that person is being honest with me, or that person knows.
There's definitely some places that will add lactose instead of adding something else to add like latent sweetness.
Right.
They will add lactose, and then
is that laziness or is that?
It's just probably slightly bad practices. Not to like besmirch anyone. Obviously, I'm not naming any names, but
it's fine.
It's just like it's just a thing that people do, and like the math. If they're doing the math on that, it's that there's so little lactose in it that it's not going to be a huge deal. But like for some people, there is, and I'm like, I don't want to mess with that. If it has lactose in it, I've now started just calling it out on the menu board because it's a pain in the ass,
right?
And nobody wants to be shitting themselves at the fucking brewery,
just or anywhere,
or anywhere, but like. Yeah.
This is great. It's it doesn't taste like an Oreo at all to me.
Yeah,
but that's maybe because I only eat traditional Oreos.
Yeah.
I don't eat those stupid flavored things that aren't really Oreos.
It's definitely less Oreo-y. We used a different source for our cream cookie.
But
product.
it's not just chocolate and peanut butter. It doesn't taste like a Reese's cup either.
Right.
That's great beer.
So. Yeah, we use a different source this year, which is probably why it doesn't taste like dead ass like Oreo. And there's also less floaties because there's not as much like cream in the. If you ever had like a Hydrox cookie, that's like the original Oreo. They have less cream in them apparently, and that's what we use this year as opposed to using Oreo.
It's single stuff, not double stuffed.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think people? Is there some kind of subset of craft beer drinkers that get pissed off if there's not as many floaties and things like that? It doesn't feel as genuine to them.
I don't know. I think it's we don't like our crowd is less like beer nerdy. Like we do obviously have our beer people who come in on especially on these days that are like cool with some floaty action, but I'm not. I don't like. I don't.
Probably
like that.
not supposed to be in a beer,
right? It's not like it's just like aesthetically it looks bad, and then like if it's still on tap the next day, and somebody's like, "Oh, could I get like whatever a 4-ounce pour of that because I've never had it?" I like I don't really want them seeing like, "Hey, there's like this beer looks like milk."
We saw it. Urban Artifact went through a lot of that when they started with the centrifuge and things like that. People got pissed off that their beers were too clear.
Yeah, I think if your goal should probably be to make like an aesthetically look like, and like we don't always make aesthetically.
Well, some styles
pleasing.
aren't.
Yeah,
and
like if you get a smoothie sour, like it's gonna look pretty grody. That's just kind of like the nature of the beast. But like I think I would prefer to like have less than more. Like coconut is always going to be hard, especially if you're using real coconut. It's very difficult to keep all the coconut in like in your however you're infusing your beer. It's very difficult to keep all that coconut in there. Bags break open, like there's tiny pieces like that's, and like there's also fat. And it kind of like gets on the top, and it kind of you can tell that it's coconut. But like if it's just like if it literally looks like chocolate milk, you might want to consider like cold crashing the beer a little bit longer. And like I don't know if you've seen Adroit Theory has a new style called that they're doing like milk, like no shit milk stouts, and it's got I don't know what it has in it, but it looks like chocolate milk.
I don't want that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it and I like started to vaguely do research on how to do it, and I was like, that's not our thing. I mean, like we were kind of talking about it I was talking about it with somebody else, and like smoothie sours are hit or miss for us,
right?
Or hit or miss for us, and like if like I think doing that for any more than just like one keg might be tough,
right? And like it also. Even like a smoothie sour can still like it may not look as great as a raspberry beret or something like that. It may not look as good, but it still doesn't look like should not probably always look like garbage. Like it still should be a pretty in its own way, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't like having like a scum on the top is always kind of grody.
Yeah, or if like you leave your pint glass sitting for more than 10 minutes at all, just kind of clumps down at the bottom. Nobody wants that with their beer. Well, if you have to serve your beer with something to stir it up before you take a sip each time,
drink your smoothie sours fast. I
don't know who wants that.
That's the advice that's. I mean, like even when we do one hit wonders, which we haven't done forever, that's kind of how it was, and like it's fine. I mean, there's a group of people that like that. I don't really drink our smoothie sours like when we do them. We don't really do them, like I said, as much. I think we're planning on doing like a one hit wonder blowout, and we have all these crowlers left. I think we're just gonna do a bunch of for Halloween. We're just gonna do a bunch of like tiki inspired.
I like that.
And I think it'll be cool. There'll probably be some gross looking ones, but like whatever. It'll be fun.
But again, like if you lean into like this category and say like this is not like a traditional beer. This is a tiki inspired beer.
Sure.
This is cocktail inspired. Then people, okay, so this is a different mindset as far as what I want this thing to be.
Yeah.
Versus if it's a beer, it's supposed to look and feel and taste like a beer.
Shouldn't be like you went to fucking Smoothie King.
Yeah. That's old man shaking his fist at the clouds. You know.
Yeah.
What is out of all of the variants you guys have done over the years? Which one has been your favorite?
I do like that apple brandy one that you mentioned before. Those barrels are always like my favorite to do. It's a like that was one of the like original stouts that like kind of like got me into like barrel stouts was Prairie's apple brandy noir.
Okay.
I was like, oh, this is more unique than like what I'd previously had. So I was like, okay, this is something that I think we could do. So like I always sought out those apple brandy barrels for our stuff because I think it's interesting, and I think it's one of those things that you just don't like. Not a lot of people fuck with apple brandy barrels.
Well, and unique barrels, like I don't know how many bourbon barrel aged stouts have been made at this point, and like you start to like almost associate those flavors of the barrel just with the style, and it's like it's be part of the beer.
Right.
Whereas when you try something that's a little bit different, you're like, okay, like this is not what I was expecting this to be. I'm getting this and this. Like, what is that? Oh, it's the barrel. Oh yeah, there's a barrel involved with this. Like it kind of separates those different things in your head and makes it more interesting for me to drink than
I agree. And I think that's like one of those.
Stout.
I think that's one of those things where like I know a lot of people try to use rum, and rum's a pain in the ass.
I love rum barrels,
which is why a lot of people don't use them. We actually like this year. Well, not this year. You won't see it for a while. We are doing like our first Demogorgon collab when the beer goes into barrels. Superstition Meadery gave us 2 of their strawberry berry white barrels. So we're gonna age Demogorgon that. We've got a Nocino barrel that I think has Speak of the Devil in it. I think that'll come out next year.
Nocino's, is that like almonds or something?
So walnuts. Liqueur. Yeah, we got it from Josh at Pretentious, which is no longer open. He got us those. like he's good friends with the Watershed people.
Yeah.
I asked him if he ever saw it to grab us one, and he was actually like on his way to get them.
That's probably a really fun barrel.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. We haven't even tried it yet, so hopefully it's good. We've got some apple brandy maple syrup barrels downstairs, maple syrup apple brandy barrels, whichever way you want to say it. That was actually like one of our most popular beers, like barrels that we did. I don't even remember what the beer that went into it was now, but like I remember well regarded. And when they went up for sale last year, I bought all of them. Because I was like, I told him, I was like, I don't even care. Like, I'll figure out what to do with them. I don't need to have a beer plan for them. I'll just figure it out. So I just bought every one that whoever was selling them had.
Right.
Trying to think. What other?
So for you, is it the barrel that's more exciting versus some kind of new adjunct or something like that?
It was. Barrels are like ridiculously expensive nowadays. So like we really are trying to not like, unless we have like a plan for the barrel. Like I try not to just go out and get barrels. Like at one point I was just like going out and getting stuff, and then I would figure out what we were gonna do with it now. Can't do that anymore. It's just like, no, the market isn't there for barrel aged product like it once was. One, and two, barrels are so expensive. You like them just sitting around is like not.
It's the market isn't there, but like, so somebody sent me a message just the other day, and they were like, "Oh, I'm having a bunch of people together, and we want to get a bunch of barrel aged beer, and we want to, get some from different parts of Ohio. Like, well, what do you guys have in Cincinnati that's like packaged barrel aged beer that I can go and get?" Like, well, I'm like, no, and like there was like a handful of places that I'm like, you can probably find something that's barrel aged from these guys. That's a whole different thing from what it was, again, even 5 years ago.
I mean, I think it's because it got pulled back. I think it like people aren't making that beer, making bourbon barrel or any bourbon or Jesus Christ, any barrel aged beer,
right?
Period, because it's just like doesn't sell like it used to.
Right.
Like it used to be like you would make it and it would fly.
It's sad for the drinker, though, in the same way that like you don't have a lot of people making an English brown ale.
Sure.
Like it's sad that like I want as a drinker to be here in Cincinnati and be like, all right, today I want a great, barrel aged mixed fermentation sour.
Right.
Where can I go and just get that today? And it's like that's hard to find.
I was like, I don't even know if there's any.
Yeah, maybe Rheingeist still have something.
Yeah,
maybe.
sure.
Maybe, and even that's like it's a roll of the dice.
Yeah, I mean I was talking to when I went out to Superstition for our version of the collab that they did there, we were talking about the same thing, just like how tough it is. I mean,
but maybe it's like just one place that has that, but somebody should have everything at any point in time here in Cincinnati.
Sure, but when it doesn't sell, it's like it's not like I like.
Look, that's a you problem, not a me problem.
Exactly.
I need it.
Yeah, well, tell your fellow drinkers to drink. I mean, like
I'm trying.
Like, look at us. We did it, and then we completely stopped. Like not even like not looking back whatsoever. Like we'll never do that again. Like we'll put like a kettle sour into a barrel, but we're not doing mix firm, all that shit. It's too much. It's too much work. It's too much stress. It's too much everything.
Right,
and it's too expensive. Whereas, like, I can do a kettle sour, throw it in a barrel, and then fruit it up, and everybody's perfectly fine with it.
There's a lot of different beer styles that I feel that way about, though, and that are probably, just normal beers that, like, you think about the style, like, who's got one of those right now? Right. And you think about it, like, there really isn't somebody right now that has one. And I can't think of another good example.
It's not even like, and like that is part of the problem of like everyone.
Well, it's Amazon. Amazon ruined it for us. We think we can get anything we want right now.
Sure. And I wasn't even gonna say like that's like a negative. It's like mostly like what ended up happening was like New England's and sours, fruited sours, sold really well.
Right.
And that's what everyone has skewed towards. And now like lagers and light beers are kind of coming back. So you're starting to see a few more of those. But like until us, whatever, a group of people decide that they're going to start drinking more of whatever. I'm trying to like look on the board right now. I mean, like look at coffee blondes. Nobody did coffee blondes 10 years ago.
Right.
And now it's like not every brewery has one, but like you can find
I also think that's a weird regional thing that's happening here too. I don't think every city has as many coffee blondes as we have in Cincinnati.
I think it's definitely I would agree that like it's a maybe not maybe regional. I don't know, but it is weird. But I think it's also some of it is you look at like Madrew's doing it, Branch and Bone's doing it, we're doing it, and then like the people that worked at those places now work other places, and then they're like, well, I really like that beer, or someone I worked with, or someone that I work with now really liked that beer when I was doing it at wherever, and now I'm gonna brew that beer.
Right.
I think it's also like one of those things where you see, it's like Saunders been very successful. Wolfsridge's been very successful with winning medals with it. It's like a good beer to submit to competitions as well. So if you're trying to just like win an award, it's a good beer to throw in.
Or if you are in a city or a region and you see somebody just dominating with this kind of strange beer style or off the wall beer style, and people are drinking a ton of it, you look at it like, all right, we should probably make one of those too.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
it kind of fuels then a bunch of people making that thing, and then now there's no German Pilsner anywhere. Like that's my fear. I want the beers that I want.
Well, that's like we were just when I was in Arizona. We were at Wren House and they had some kind of special German gravity keg that I've seen, like I know of, but I don't even know what it's called, and I don't like. We don't do it here, but I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to do.
Like a almost like a cask kind of thing.
It's kind of like a cask, but it's not. I don't know. I'd like to message them and ask like what it is. But I was like, oh, that'd be a cool thing to do for Oktoberfest next year,
right?
Because we're trying to get more into the Oktoberfest thing. But that's like one of those things where like, oh, that'd be cool, and like it'd be interesting to see like how that spawns more and more people doing that or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's I think a lot of the growth of certain styles or certain things is because the diaspora of brewers across the city, where you've got people working someplace and then either starting their own place or going to work at a different place or whatever. And you kind of see it. I'm trying to think of like up in Columbus, it's up in Columbus and Cleveland. It's a little bit easier to see because of Mad Tree's had a lot of people stay for a long time, and so is Rheingeist. But you see like people leave Fatheads and then go and do their own thing, and then they're like they make IPAs. Like,
I mean, there for a while there was definitely a handful of places that kind of became those incubators for other.
Yes.
It is a little different now, but we're starting to see Mad Tree kind of kick some people out.
Right.
Well, kick some people out is not the right way to. They're not kicking anybody out. People leaving and going and starting their own thing. And same with Rheingeist. We're starting to see some of that happening.
Yeah.
It's.
But yeah, I mean, like early on, it was like. Two places.
Yeah.
Two places that everybody worked at. Everybody worked at, and then they went and worked at somewhere else. And then they might even like at this point like be on their third place. But yeah, I mean it was most people that started brewing like 8 to 14 years ago can trace most of their early brewing back to like two places.
I still think a huge chunk of it still goes back to Rivertown. Like you can trace a lot of people still back to Rivertown, even some that went to the other spot or this spot over here, and then kind of went to another spot. Like it's still like Rivertown kind of was center to a lot of people's brewing lives, which makes sense because there just really weren't that many places at the time, and they were kicking out a lot of beer and needed a lot of people to make that happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you look, I know of like 5 people still in the industry that worked with me at Rivertown.
Right.
And actually 6 people because we hired someone back that was out of the industry back into the industry that worked with me at Rivertown. So
you want to say who?
Adam. He didn't work at Rivertown very long. He was a packaging lead at Rivertown while I was there.
What's the last name?
Steinke?
I don't know if I know.
No, probably not. It was like it was a fairly short stint. It was.
Well, that was the problem with Rivertown too.
Turning over.
People. Not everybody was happy at their roles.
He was in the second wave of people that came through while I worked there.
Yeah, I think that's
of 4.
Is it better or worse to if you're a brewery and you existed for X amount of time in the city that even now, like years later, you can still see pieces of that around or not? I don't know which is better, but
honestly, like it'd be interesting to find like the comparison in another city and see what what they say.
Yeah.
Because I think it's hard for I think it's easy for a lot of people to say like how they felt.
Well, it's hard to separate yourself from your experience in that place.
Right.
Whereas there are some people that didn't have that kind of personal experience with some of the bad sides of what a place was.
Yep.
This Saturday.
Yes.
Demogorgon. When do things kick off? Probably like noon-ish or earlier?
Early. When we open. Hold on. Let me... you think I'd have this? I mean, we'll be here. The line starts typically on, like, I know Speed of the Devil was not as line heavy. There was people here, but Demogorgon is still gets a line. Like, there'll probably be people here at 8. We'll start giving out tickets at that time, and then we'll start doing pre-orders and then send everybody through, and then we'll have some cellared stuff on tap. We'll have cellared beers, obviously, for sale. That'll all get announced here at some point. You have every bottle variant, every single variant, cellared stuff. Last year's VIP beer, which we only probably have like a gallon, so you better, if you want
get here early.
Get here really early, because it's probably gonna be the first, like, however many people on tap. We actually have less Demogorgon than we have had in the past as well, so like it might behoove you, if you're really looking for something, especially one of the like more popular ones, to get here, to make sure you're here early.
Right.
We have 10 cases of everything, or maybe less, maybe more. Like coconut coffee, we're gonna have a little bit less. We're probably only gonna have 7 cases, because some of it has to go FOBO. So that's nothing for Demogorgon. Normally we have about 18 to 20 cases. So it's
going to go fast, guys.
Yeah, and this is not just me like bullshitting just to get people here. This is the least amount of Demogorgon variant of each variant that we've done. We're going to have some that are going to have more. We're going to have some that will have less, but like stuff that like the stuff that you're going to want.
It's also one of those beers that has like a very strong fan base around it. There's people that just want to get them all, and they're going to get them all.
Sure, yeah.
If you're a casual, I like Demogorgon, we should go to that and try to get them all. You gotta plan ahead. You gotta know what you're doing, because they are going to go fast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever, we let people up, and then everybody drinks it, and you can come throughout the day. It's just like if you're looking.
Yeah, there will be something to drink.
If you're looking, especially on draft. Like we have plenty of draft of everything. It's just if you want to buy cans, this could be the tightest year of Demogorgon since probably the first year.
Well, I think that's fine. I think that's okay. I think it's.
Well, I think that's like kind of like where we're gonna go from now on, because it's.
I feel like there should always be at least 1 or 2 variants that go fast that there's not much of that makes you want to get there early.
Yeah, like last year was Samoan Cookie was really quick. I'm trying to think of the year before. I don't remember the year before. It's been a long 2 years.
It's been a long 4 years, honestly. The last 4 years are just a weird blur.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the show notes to social media so people can go and see the event and share with their friends and all that good stuff, which you're supposed to do on social media. You're supposed to be social, share things with people. That's how everybody communicates now. Send text messages too, but whatever. Yeah. Social's the right way. I appreciate you making some time for me. We will definitely do it again. We don't have to only do it once a year. If there's something fun in the middle of the summer you want to talk about, we'll do it. This last year has been so freaking busy with stuff. So we kick off our seasons in March right around Patty's Day. And this is only like episode 16 of this season so far. Really? That's how like scattered out the shows have been, because life. I blame my kids, blame my wife, blame everything that's going on, but really it's just me. Doing too much. But I appreciate all of you guys for listening and for sharing the show with your friends. If you really like this, if you like any of the stuff that I do, go to thegnarlygnome.com/support. That helps a lot. Makes my wife very happy, and that, as we all know, is the real secret to life. We'll be back next week. We're Big Sis. The Big Sis episode from the other night will be next week's episode, so stay tuned. Cincy Brewcast, the voice of Cincy Craft.